Sua, a bullet struck the stone beside Kang Tae-jun's head. So, why did the blind flower girl smile? Tae-jun moved before the echo finished rolling between the narrow Seoul buildings, his black coat brushing a cold brick wall as another round cracked through the darkness. The alley smelled of rainwater, engine oil, and crushed chrysanthemums from a flower cart overturned near the curb. 3 men stood across the street, their silhouettes broken by the white glare of a convenience store sign. They had chosen the location carefully.
No guards.
No visible cars. No witnesses who would dare remember the Korean Mafia boss after midnight. Tae-jun's hand slipped inside his coat, fingers closing around his phone. The screen showed one thing, no signal. He looked toward the mouth of the alley. Empty. Then he heard it, a soft metallic click behind him. He turned. A young woman stood beside a wooden flower cart, one hand resting on a bundle of white lilies. Her eyes were pale and unfocused beneath the glow of a street lamp. A thin black ribbon held her dark hair away from her face. She wore a simple cream coat, its sleeves damp at the cuffs.
Seo-yeon.
A blind flower girl who should have been nowhere near him. Sir, she said quietly.
Gehalten.
Go home. She tilted her head instead. Somewhere above them, a window slammed shut. A car engine idled 2 streets away. Water dripped steadily from a metal fire escape. Seo-yeon listened to all of it, as if the alley were speaking directly into her hands. Then her fingers tightened around the lilies. Don't move left.
Tae-jun froze.
Not because he trusted her. Because she had spoken exactly 1 second before the next shot came. The bullet struck the wall where his shoulder would have been. Dust scattered across his black sleeve. He looked at Seo-yeon again. She had not flinched. The assassins moved.
Shoes scraped wet pavement.
A car door opened. Tae-jun counted 3 sets of footsteps, then 4. 4 men. 2 approaching from the street. 1 behind the parked sedan. 1 somewhere above them. He had spent years surviving men who carried guns, knives, and grudges. But none had ever made him hesitate with a single sentence. Seo-yeon lifted her chin toward the darkness. There are 2 behind you now. Tae-jun slowly turned his head. Nothing. Just a silver sedan reflecting the blue-white storefront light. How do you know? He asked. Their shoes.
A pause.
The one on the right is wearing wet leather. The other has gravel in his heel.
Tae-jun stepped the hair.
The flower girl gently placed the lilies on the cart. Her fingertips brushed the petals, then stopped. And the man above you, she whispered, has been holding his breath for 12 seconds. For the first time that night, Tae-jun looked up. A shadow shifted behind the fire escape railing. His expression did not change, but something inside his calculation did. The assassins had come believing the Korean Mafia boss was alone. They were wrong. Not because Tae-jun had hidden guards nearby. Not because reinforcements were coming. They were wrong because the blind woman beside his flower cart had already found them all. And when Seo-yeon reached beneath the cart and pulled out a small metal whistle, Tae-jun finally understood the question that mattered. What else could she do that no one had ever seen coming? Seo-yeon raised the metal whistle, and Kang Tae-jun realized she had been waiting for this night. The whistle never sounded. Instead, she placed it back beneath the flower cart and reached for his sleeve. Not yet. Tae-jun looked at her hand, then at the dark windows above the alley. The cold metal of his watch pressed against his wrist as he checked the time. 11:47 p.m. The street lamp flickered, washing Seo-yeon's cream coat in pale yellow before the light steadied again. You knew they were coming, he said. She released his sleeve. I knew someone would come.
How?
Because you always walk the street alone on Fridays. Tae-jun went still. He had never told her that. For 3 years, only a handful of people knew his Friday routine. Yet, Seo-yeon turned toward the overturned flower cart as if the answer were sitting among the crushed petals. You buy flowers at 11:50, she said. You stay for 3 minutes. Then you leave through the south entrance. Tae-jun glanced at the lilies scattered across the wet pavement, their sweet scent mixed with gasoline from the idling sedan. You've been watching me. Listening, she corrected. He studied her face. Her eyes remained fixed somewhere beyond his shoulder, but her posture was precise, almost unnervingly calm.
재훈 stepped toward her.
What is your name?
Han Seo-yeon.
How long have you been selling flowers here? 8 months. And how long have you known who I am? She paused. A loose ribbon on the flower cart trembled in the night breeze. Since the first night you bought white lilies.
재훈의 jaw tightened.
Most people who recognized him avoided his gaze. Seo-yeon simply waited. Then she bent down, gathered 3 undamaged lilies from the pavement, and placed them carefully into the cart. You should leave, she said. Why? Because they aren't going to shoot again. Tae-jun looked toward the street. They're retreating. He listened. The footsteps had disappeared. The sedan's engine faded into the distance. Whoever had planned the attack had withdrawn without finishing it. Tae-jun reached for his phone. The signal had returned. Within seconds, a message appeared from one of his men. Route clear. No contact. Tae-jun stared at the screen, then slowly lowered it. His security team had not arrived. Someone had made the assassins pull back. Seo-yeon closed the flower cart. The wooden latch clicked softly. Come with me, Tae-jun said. Where? Somewhere they can't reach you. She shook her head. If I leave with you, they'll know you trust me.
재훈 stopped. It was the first time anyone had challenged him that night.
Seo-yeon picked up her small canvas flower bag and stepped into the alley's darkness. If you want to know whether I'm dangerous, she said, stop protecting me. Tae-jun watched her walk away, then made a decision that changed the balance between them. Tomorrow, he called after her, you sell your flowers at my building. Seo-yeon stopped. The city noise seemed to fall away. That's not a request, Mr. Kang. No, Tae-jun said. It's an offer. She turned her face toward his voice. Then I'll accept. And for the first time, Tae-jun understood that bringing the blind flower girl closer might be the only way to discover what she was truly capable of. SUA the next morning, Han Seo-yeon walked into Kang Tae-jun's headquarters carrying 12 white lilies, and every guard in the lobby turned to watch her. The marble floor felt cool beneath her worn shoes, while the scent of polished wood and fresh flowers followed her across the silent entrance hall. Tae-jun stood behind a wall of dark glass on the 23rd floor, watching her through the security feed. He had expected hesitation. Instead, Seo-yeon walked straight to the elevator, counted the soft chime of each passing floor, and stepped inside before anyone offered assistance. When the doors opened upstairs, Tae-jun was waiting. You came, he said. Seo-yeon held out the lilies. You asked me to. Most people would have changed their minds. Most people don't know why you asked.
재훈 studied her.
She turned toward the sound of his watch ticking. You want to test whether I was lucky last night. A faint click came from his desk as he set down a pen. And if I was? Then you'll send me home. Tae-jun nodded toward the corridor. Walk with me. He led her through a private hallway lined with black stone, thick carpet, and framed photographs. Seo-yeon never touched the walls. She simply counted her steps beneath her breath. At the end of the corridor, Tae-jun stopped beside a conference room. There are 3 doors, he said. Tell me which one is safe. Seo-yeon smiled faintly. I can't see them. That's the point. She stood still. The air conditioning hummed above them. Somewhere behind the walls, an elevator cable groaned. She tilted her head. The middle one. Tae-jun didn't move. Why? The left door has a draft beneath it. The right door smells like coffee. She paused. The middle door has nothing. Tae-jun opened the middle door. Inside, sunlight spilled across a long walnut table. 3 identical chairs waited beneath recessed lights. Again, he said. He moved a chair. Then another. Which one did I move? Seo-yeon listened. Leather scraped softly against polished wood. The one nearest the window. Tae-jun looked toward the glass. He had moved the chair without making more. Then a whisper of sound. You're good. No, she placed the lilies in a crystal vase.
I'm careful.
Then she walked to the window and stopped. 40 floors below, Seoul moved in layers of traffic noise and distant horns. Tae-jun watched her hand hover near the glass without touching it. What do you hear? He asked. Your building. That's not an answer. It is. She pointed toward the ceiling. 2 guards outside. One is wearing a watch with a loose metal clasp. Then, toward the elevator. Someone just stepped out. Tae-jun's expression tightened. How many? Seo-yeon listened for 3 seconds. 1. The elevator doors opened. A guard entered, carrying a sealed folder. Tae-jun took it, opened it, and found nothing inside except a single white flower. He looked back at Seo-yeon. She had already turned toward him. Now, she said quietly, you know I wasn't lucky. Tae-jun closed the folder. He no longer saw a blind flower girl standing inside his headquarters. He saw the one person in the building who could move through danger without ever needing to see it coming. SUA by noon, the white flower on Tae-jun's desk had become the only thing he refused to throw away. Sunlight cut through the glass walls of his office, warming the black stone floor while the faint scent of lilies lingered beneath the sharp smell of coffee. Seo-yeon stood near the window, arranging fresh flowers into a crystal vase as if she belonged there.
Tae-jun, what's it here, hence?
You knew that folder was empty, he said. I knew something was wrong with it. She adjusted one stem. The paper made no sound when you opened it. He leaned back. You listen to paper now? To everything. Before he could answer, she walked away from the window and stopped beside the conference table. Your building is too quiet. Tae-jun glanced toward the closed door. It's always quiet. Not today. She touched the edge of the table. Today, everyone is trying to be quiet. He said nothing. Seo-yeon reached for the small canvas bag she had carried into the building and removed a folded cloth. Inside was a simple black earpiece. She placed it on the table. Put this on. Tae-jun raised an eyebrow. Why? Because I want to know whether you can follow instructions. He picked it up. The plastic felt cold against his fingers. And if I don't, then I leave. Tae-jun put it on. Seo-yeon stepped toward the office door. Walk behind me. They moved through the hallway, without speaking. Carpets softened their footsteps. The overhead lights hummed faintly above them. Seo-yeon stopped at an intersection.
3 steps forward, she said. Tae-jun obeyed.
Now turn right. He turned. She suddenly stopped and raised one hand. A cleaning cart rolled around the corner, its rubber wheels squeaking against the marble.
Tae-jun waited.
Seo-yeon moved again. She led him into a service corridor he had never used himself, past warm pipes and the metallic smell of machinery. At the end stood a steel door. She placed her palm against it. Open it. Tae-jun did. A rush of cold air crossed his face. Beyond the door was a parking level, dim and nearly empty. Seo-yeon stepped forward. Then she stopped. You said your building was secure. It is. Then why is that car running? Tae-jun looked across the garage. A dark sedan sat beneath a concrete pillar, headlights off, engine humming. He reached for his phone. Seo-yeon caught his wrist. Don't call anyone. He looked at her hand. Why? Because I want to test one thing. She walked toward the sedan. Tae-jun followed, but she raised her hand again. Stay there. She bent beside a parking marker and picked up a silver keycard lying on the ground. The garage lights reflected across its surface. She held it out. This belongs to your building. Tae-jun took it. How did you know? The plastic is warm. He stared at the card. Someone had dropped it moments earlier. Seo-yeon turned toward the sedan. Now we leave. Why? Because whoever left that car wants you to approach it.
Tae-jun stepped beside her.
And you? She gave a small smile. I don't need to see the trap to know it's there. He looked at the running sedan, then back at her. For the first time, Tae-jun moved when Seo-yeon told him to move, not because he had no choice, but because he trusted her judgment. They walked back toward the elevator. Then Seo-yeon stopped at the doors and made a decision. Tomorrow, I want to enter this building alone. Tae-jun turned toward her. Why? Because if I can't walk through your headquarters without you beside me, you'll never know what I'm capable of. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime.
Tae-jun stepped inside.
Seo-yeon followed. Neither spoke as the doors closed, leaving the unanswered challenge hanging between them. Could the blind flower girl survive inside the Korean Mafia boss's world without him protecting her? SUA at 8 a.m., Seo-yeon entered Kang Tae-jun's headquarters alone, and the guards who once watched her now stepped aside. The glass doors whispered shut behind her, sealing out the traffic noise and leaving only the polished marble beneath her shoes and the faint scent of lilies from the lobby. She carried no escort, no phone in her hand, only the same canvas flower bag resting against her coat. Tae-jun watched from the security room as she crossed the lobby without asking for directions. She stopped at the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. She really came alone, one guard murmured. Tae-jun said nothing. The elevator chimed. Seo-yeon stepped inside. Then every camera in the lobby went dark.
Tae-jun stood immediately.
Who shut them off? The room filled with keyboard clicks and electronic beeps. Before anyone could answer, the cameras returned. Seo-yeon was no longer in the elevator. Tae-jun looked at the screen. Empty hallway. Empty lobby. Then the elevator doors opened on the 23rd floor. Seo-yeon walked out carrying her flowers. No alarm had sounded. No guard had stopped her. She had simply chosen the service elevator, crossed one unmonitored corridor, and reached his office through a side entrance. Tae-jun met her at the doorway. You had 10 seconds before the cameras reset. 9, she replied. Why? The system hums differently when it switches. She walked past him. The office smelled of coffee and cedar, while pale morning light stretched across the black desk. She placed the canvas bag beside the crystal vase. You said I could walk through your building alone. I didn't say you could bypass my security. You didn't say I couldn't. Tae-jun almost smiled, but the expression disappeared as the office phone rang. He answered. A guard's voice came through. Boss, the south entrance just triggered. Tae-jun looked towards Seo-yeon. She was touching the petals of a white lily. Lock the building, he ordered. Seo-yeon immediately turned. Don't. Tae-jun lowered the phone. Why? Because whoever triggered it wants everyone moving. She stepped toward the desk. If you lock the building, you put every guard in one place. Tae-jun stared at her for a moment, then changed the order.
No lockdown.
Keep everyone where they are. The voice on the phone hesitated. Boss. You heard me. He ended the call. Seo-yeon reached into her flower bag and placed 3 lilies on the desk. Move these. Tae-jun looked at them. Where? Anywhere you want. He moved one beside the phone, one near the window, and one beside the door. Seo-yeon listened. The one by the window. What about it? Leave it there.
Tae-jun waited.
A soft elevator chime sounded beyond the office. Then another. Then a third. Seo-yeon turned toward the door. Someone is coming upstairs. One person. No, her fingers closed around the handle of her canvas bag. Everyone. Tae-jun looked at the security monitor. The elevators were rising simultaneously from different floors. For the first time, his entire headquarters seemed to be moving toward him at once. Seo-yeon stepped beside him, calm and silent, while the elevator numbers climbed. Then she said, Now you understand why I needed to come alone. The doors outside began to open. The elevator doors opened, and Seo-yeon stepped forward before anyone else could speak. The hallway lights cast long white bars across the polished floor, while the air smelled faintly of cedar and cold metal.
Tae-jun moved beside her.
Stay behind me. She shook her head. No, the single word stopped him. Beyond the glass doors, several members of his security team stood frozen in the corridor, hands away from their weapons, waiting for his command. Seo-yeon lifted her canvas flower bag and walked toward them.
Nobody moves, Tae-jun ordered.
His voice carried through the marble hallway. The guard stopped. Seo-yeon continued until she reached the center of the corridor, then placed the bag on the floor. A soft rustle came from inside. You wanted to know what I'm capable of, she said. Now watch.
Tae-jun stepped closer.
What are you doing? Changing the rules. She opened the bag and removed 6 white lilies. Their fresh scent spread through the corridor, cutting through the smell of polished stone and machine oil. She placed 1 flower beside each elevator door. Why flowers?
Tae-jun asked.
Because everyone watches a gun. She touched the last lily. Nobody watches a flower. Then the building lights went out. Emergency strips along the floor flickered red. A low electrical hum died beneath them. Somewhere behind the walls, a security alarm began to pulse. Tae-jun reached for Seo-yeon's arm, but she stepped away. Don't. It's dark. For you. She turned toward the corridor as if the darkness had changed nothing. Not for me. Footsteps sounded from the stairwell. Tae-jun heard 2 sets. Then 3. Seo-yeon moved before they reached the landing, pulling Tae-jun toward a recessed doorway. Stay here. I'm not hiding.
You're not hiding, she said.
You're waiting. The footsteps stopped. A voice echoed through the darkness.
Kang Tae-jun.
Tae-jun recognized the tone, but said nothing. Seo-yeon did. They're not here for him. Silence. Then a second voice answered from farther down the hall. Bring her out. Tae-jun turned toward Seo-yeon. She stood perfectly still, one hand resting on the wall. You knew. I suspected. Why didn't you tell me? She faced him. Because you would have protected me. That's what I do. And that's exactly what they expect. The red emergency lights washed across her face. Tae-jun looked at the flower beside the elevator. Who are they? Seo-yeon shook her head. Wrong question.
She stepped out of the doorway.
Ask why they followed me.
Tae-jun ko terrorist.
You're the target. She gently pulled free. Yes. The admission landed harder than any alarm. She reached into her coat and produced a small white envelope.
No seal.
No name. She placed it in Tae-jun's hand. They don't want you dead. Tonight. He opened it. Inside was a single sentence printed in black ink. Give US the flower girl, and the Korean Mafia boss walks away. Tae-jun slowly folded the paper. The hallway fell silent except for the faint electrical buzz of the emergency lights. Seo-yeon stood beside him, not behind him. Now you understand, she whispered. You were never the prize. Tae-jun looked toward the dark stairwell, then back at the blind flower girl. His hand closed around the envelope. Then neither of us is leaving. And for the first time, the people hunting Seo-yeon realized they had made one mistake. They had given the Korean Mafia boss a reason to stop running. Seo-yeon stepped away from Tae-jun and walked toward the elevators as the doors opened one after another. Red emergency lights washed the marble walls, and the low hum of the building's backup system vibrated beneath their feet. Stay here, Tae-jun said. No, she kept walking. If they came for me, they need to believe I'm alone. Tae-jun caught up with her. You're not using yourself as bait. I already decided. She pressed the elevator button. The doors opened with a soft chime. Inside, the brushed steel walls reflected the red floor lights in narrow strips. Seo-yeon stepped in first.
Tae-jun followed.
Which floor? He asked. Parking level. Why? Because they expect you to take me somewhere safe. The elevator descended. Numbers blinked above them. Seo-yeon reached into her canvas bag and removed the 6 white lilies she had carried upstairs. One by one, she placed them on the floor.
Tae-jun, what it?
What are those for? A map. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto the underground garage. Concrete pillars stood beneath harsh fluorescent lights, and the air carried the smell of oil, dust, and cold exhaust. Seo-yeon stepped out. Turn off the lights.
Tae-jun hesitated. Now.
He reached for the control panel and killed the garage lights. Darkness swallowed the rows of parked cars. Only a thin strip of emergency lighting remained along the floor. Seo-yeon walked forward. Her shoes tapped softly against concrete. Tae-jun followed several feet behind. A distant door opened, then closed. They're here, he whispered. I know. She placed one lily beside a pillar, then another near a parked SUV, then another beside a stairwell. What are you doing? Making them follow the wrong path. A shadow crossed the far end of the garage. Seo-yeon turned toward it. 3 people.
Tae-jun looked.
I see 2. The third is behind the pillar. She moved suddenly, not away from them but toward the stairwell.
Tae-jun followed.
A flashlight snapped on behind them. Its white beam cut through the darkness. Seo-yeon stopped.
Now.
Tae-jun reached for the garage door control. The heavy metal door began descending, its motor grinding through the concrete space. The three figures turned toward the exit. Seo-yeon walked calmly toward the stairwell. They think we're trapped, she said. We're not. Tae-jun looked at the lilies marking her path. You planned this before we came downstairs. I planned it when they entered your building. She touched the railing. You gave me the building. I gave myself the advantage. Tae-jun followed her up the stairs. Halfway to the next level, she stopped. A man's voice came through the darkness below.
Kang Tae-jun.
Leave the girl and walk away. Tae-jun looked down. Seo-yeon stood beside him, one hand resting on the cold metal railing. Answer them, she whispered. What do you want me to say? Tell them you're leaving. Tae-jun turned toward her. Absolutely not. For the first time, Seo-yeon smiled.
Good.
She stepped onto the next landing. Because now they'll come after us.
Tae-jun understood.
The trap had changed direction. They were no longer being hunted through the building. They were leading the hunters exactly where Seo-yeon wanted them. She reached for the next door and stopped. When I open this, she said, you don't protect me.
Tae-jun looked at her steady face.
Then what do I do? Trust me. The door handle turned, and Seo-yeon opened the door into the darkness. The steel door opened, and Seo-yeon stepped into the darkness first, leaving Tae-jun behind her. Cold concrete pressed the air around them, carrying the smell of dust and engine oil, while the faint emergency lights painted thin red lines. Across the floor. Don't move, she whispered.
Tae-jun stopped.
From somewhere ahead came the scrape of a shoe. Then another. Seo-yeon lifted one hand and listened. 3 seconds passed. She turned toward the sound and walked directly toward it. Tae-jun followed despite her warning. You said you wouldn't protect me. I said I wouldn't interfere. She stopped beside a parked delivery van. Its metal side was cold beneath her fingertips. Then don't. A flashlight snapped on. Its beam crossed the garage and stopped inches from Seo-yeon's face. A man stepped from behind a concrete pillar. 2 others appeared behind him. Tae-jun moved forward, but Seo-yeon raised her hand. Stay. The leader looked at her. You came willingly. You expected me to. Then this is easier than we thought. Seo-yeon smiled faintly.
No.
It's exactly as I planned. She dropped a lily onto the concrete. The man's eyes followed it for half a second. That was enough. Seo-yeon turned toward the echo of his footsteps and walked behind the delivery van.
Tae-jun understood.
She wasn't running. She was separating them. The first man followed her. The second moved toward Tae-jun. The third remained near the stairwell. Then the garage lights suddenly returned. Bright fluorescent panels flooded the concrete, exposing every parked vehicle and every open doorway. Tae-jun looked toward Seo-yeon. She stood beside the van, perfectly still.
Now, she said.
Tae-jun reached for the nearest security panel and activated the garage shutters. Metal barriers began descending at both ends of the level. The 3 men looked around. Their escape routes were closing. Seo-yeon walked to the center of the garage. You came looking for a helpless girl, she said. But you never asked what she could hear. The leader stepped forward. Who are you? She turned toward his voice. The person who has been listening to your organization for months.
Tae-jun looked at her sharply.
This was no longer about surviving an attack. Seo-yeon had been preparing for this moment long before he met her. She reached into her canvas bag and removed the 6 lilies from earlier. Each stem carried a tiny number tag. She placed them on the ground in a precise line. 1 for every entrance, she said. 1 for every exit. Then she faced Tae-jun, and 1 for the person who believed you were alone. A door slammed somewhere behind them.
Tae-jun turned.
His closest security team had arrived, but Seo-yeon raised her voice before anyone could rush forward. Nobody comes closer. The guard stopped. The assassins looked between her and Tae-jun. The balance had shifted completely. Tae-jun stepped beside Seo-yeon, but he did not move in front of her. You heard her, he said. Nobody moves. Seo-yeon reached for the final lily and held it toward the darkness above the garage. He's there. Tae-jun looked up. A figure stood behind the upper railing, watching them. The man slowly stepped into the light. Seo-yeon's fingers tightened around the flower. That's the one, she said.
Tae-jun's eyes narrowed.
The one what? She turned toward him, the man who thought I couldn't see him coming. Then the figure above raised both hands, and the entire garage fell silent. Seo, the man above the garage, lowered his hands, and Seo-yeon immediately said, Tae-jun, don't let anyone touch him. The command cut through the cold concrete air, where fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the sharp smell of motor oil hung beneath the metal beams. Tae-jun raised one hand, stopping his guards.
Who are you? He called.
The man slowly descended the stairs. His shoes struck each step with measured clicks. Seo-yeon stood beside Tae-jun, her fingers resting against the stem of the final white lily. He came because he believes I'm still alone, she said. He's wrong. The man stopped 10 feet away. You were supposed to disappear. Seo-yeon turned toward his voice. I stopped disappearing.
Tae-jun looked ahead.
For weeks, she had moved through his world quietly, listening to doors, footsteps, elevators, engines, and voices. But now she stood in the center of his headquarters with every eye fixed on her.
Tell them, she said.
Tell them what happens when they underestimate someone they cannot see. Tae-jun understood the moment. He stepped aside. For the first time, he was not placing himself between Seo-yeon and danger. He was giving her the room. The man looked toward Tae-jun. You're really letting her handle this? Yes, Tae-jun said. Because I trust her. The words settled heavily across the garage. Seo-yeon lifted the lily. You thought blindness made me weak. She placed the flower on the concrete. It made me learn every sound people ignore. She placed another beside it. Every hesitation. Another. Every change in breathing. The man's expression tightened. What do you want? Seo-yeon answered without raising her voice. For you to leave this building and never send anyone after me again. He gave a short laugh. You think you can make that demand? Tae-jun stepped forward, but Seo-yeon raised her hand.
He stopped.
She turned toward the man.
No.
He could make that demand. She nodded toward Tae-jun. But I don't need him to. Then she pressed the metal whistle from beneath her coat. One sharp note rang through the garage. Doors opened on 3 different levels. Security personnel appeared along the walkways, but nobody rushed forward. Seo-yeon had positioned them before the confrontation began, using the lilies as silent markers and the building's echoes as her guide. The man looked around. His path out was gone. Tae-jun remained still. You came for her, he said. Now look at who is standing behind her. The man lowered his gaze. Seo-yeon turned toward Tae-jun. You can end this.
How?
Make them understand that nobody who comes after me gets to use your name as protection. Tae-jun looked at the man. You're done. Leave Seoul tonight. If anyone connected to you approaches Seo-yeon again, the agreement ends. The man nodded. He turned and walked toward the exit under the watch of Tae-jun's guards. No gunfire followed.
No chasse.
Only the steady sound of footsteps fading beyond the garage doors. When silence returned, Tae-jun looked at Seo-yeon. You could have told me you were capable of all this. She smiled and adjusted the lilies in her bag. Then you would have spent the whole time protecting me. Tae-jun looked at the flower cart waiting upstairs, then held out his hand. What do you want now? Seo-yeon placed one white lily in his palm. Tomorrow I sell flowers. He looked at the delicate stem against his hand. And tonight? She turned toward the elevator. Tonight, you finally stop calling me helpless. The elevator doors opened, warm light spilling across the cold garage floor, and Tae-jun followed her, not as her shield, but as the man who had finally learned that the strongest person in the room was the one everyone had mistaken for powerless.